we recording?
I was just gonna say that's a really good. That's some great Patreon content, and we'll get it started now. And normally we have something funny to say, and this time I don't know. Here we are. Hi everybody, my name's Caleb. That's Brian. I'm gonna do the whoop. There it is, the pointing thing again that I can't do. He's over there. Peace and love and balloons, everybody. I hate reactions on the iPhone. That is so dumb. In fact, you've just reminded me to turn those off.
Oh.
Done.
Well, I don't mind it. There's some balloons in our video.
Yeah. So anyways, that's Brian. I'm Caleb. And this is the one about Godzilla movies, a podcast where we watch all of the Godzilla movies, or we will be eventually. We're working through them. And I've seen them all way too many times to count. And even the movie that we're talking about today, I've watched 3 times in the last 2 weeks.
Dear Lord.
I love it. It's so good. This is my honest review. And Brian here has never, he is seeing most of these fresh for the first time. Almost all of them, all but one, fresh for the very first time. So
yeah, last episode was the first episode where we were touching on something I had seen before. Mm-hmm. Every other episode going forward will be fresh for me. So
yeah, and yeah, we're just here to talk about them, and we thought it'd be kind of cool and fun. If you, we just kind of jumped in. We were talking in I'm going to call it the pre-show, about you kind of jumping full into the MonsterVerse now. And that's kind of what led me to kind of think about maybe this is where we should go with this route because of a couple of things. So, our original idea was to watch all of the origin stories of Godzilla, and there are 2 more reboots or origin stories, or whatever you want to call it, that we still need to watch. But I think that watching now moving through the legendary Godzilla movies is a good idea. We'll do that now because there's one that's in theaters right now, and it's a series that is actively being worked on. It's modern effects, it's modern storytelling, and I think it'll be cool to kind of have all that underneath our belt and then start to go back and watch some of the hilarious 70s stuff. But also maybe because we can do this in a timely fashion, you may be able to see Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire in theaters, because I think you've only got one more movie to watch before you could see that one. One more Godzilla movie to watch before you could see that one.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and actually, you don't even need to see the other Kong movie for it to make sense at all. Anyways, yeah, so if you would like to hear that discussion and Brian's thoughts on Kong Skull Island and a couple brief thoughts on the show MonsterVerse, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. Wow, words are hard. Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. It's an Apple TV original TV show that we both really liked. If you'd like to hear his brief thoughts on that and just have a longer version of the show, you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/theoneaboutgodzillamovies, and you get a largely unedited and usually longer version of the show there. Otherwise, you can find us on YouTube and all the standard podcast players, and there is all of the, I think all the housekeeping stuff. Do you have any follow-up from the last episode? Anything? He asks. Neither one of us have a very good memory. I don't know why I even.
No, neither of us have a great memory. Also, my palate has been so cleansed by MonsterVerse content between the last movie we talked about and this one that all I can think about is mostly the world of Monarch, the organization and the show and the way it interacts with these movies. So
I am. Just to kind of blanket statement this whole conversation, I am really impressed with where they took the series from the first Godzilla to where we are now. Even, and you're going to see that a little bit more, the tone changes again after this movie, the next one, which is Godzilla vs. Kong. I don't know. I just kind of I like what they're doing, and I think I mentioned this when I saw the new Godzilla movie. I don't know if I texted you, but I told you it felt like the new one that just came out feels like they kind of did a Guardians of the Galaxy move like kind of how Marvel did. There was all this serious stuff, and then it was like, hey, here's Guardians of the Galaxy, just kind of like peppered in, and that's kind of what this new Godzilla X Kong movie feels like. That kind of, yeah, it was really, really cool.
The poster looks colorful, so
yeah, it's oh man, it's such
no spoilers.
It's a fun ride. It's a fun.
Maybe I'll be able to catch it while it's still in the theater.
So before we actually jump into talking about Godzilla, King of the Monsters, that's the one we're talking about this week, 2019's legendary release. I want to ask you about something that we've texted about before, Neon Genesis Evangelion. Have you done anything with that at all? Do you know anything?
No.
Okay.
My history with any sort of Japanese animated content is very limited, actually. Mostly Studio Ghibli.
Okay.
I did see Akira in the theater.
Nice.
Actually.
I saw recently that
brought it back randomly.
Yeah, I saw a theater here is going to do this summer. They're going to do all of the Studio Ghibli stuff, like over the course of the summer, show them for like a week or something.
Yeah.
I asked this because we were supposed to watch Shin Godzilla for this episode, and instead decided to move to the MonsterVerse. I'm having a hard time hearing myself. My fault. Shin Godzilla was directed by the guy that created Neon Genesis Evangelion. Neon Genesis is an anime that came out like early 2000s, maybe even late 90s. And it's about like, to give you the TLDR on it, God is sending angels to destroy the world because it's time for like what happens in Revelation. It's kind of like a spin on that. So there are angels being sent to destroy the world, and Japan is taking it upon itself to stop that from happening. And so they have developed these giant mech suit robot things to fight these angels. And they have to be piloted by very certain people who have to have like a neural connection link thing with these mech things that they're going to pilot. Like it can't just be a normal person. You have to go through testing, and like your brain kind of has to be compatible with this robot as part of the storyline. And one of the characters is the son of the director of this whole program and is very unwilling to do it. And that's what the show follows, is Shinji. And it's all about Shinji is what the show is about. But the reason I bring up Neon Genesis is I want to find a way for you to watch at least the very first, like, it's been redone, recut. It's kind of like Star Wars. It's been just kind of like...
There's like a million versions
exactly. There's a million versions, reformatted, blah, blah, blah. And it used to be, and because it's been being done as the internet has come up, it's really hard to track down a solid version of the original stuff, or like you're kind of hoping for just like a DVD rip or something like that. And anyways, it's a really, really cool story. It's a really cool anime. It also kind of set the tone for a lot of sci-fi and a lot of kaiju stuff. Pacific Rim references Neon Genesis very, very heavily. Like it's actually kind of cool what Guillermo del Toro did in that movie, but it's just so parallel. Without telling the same story. I just thought it was really cool. But there's so much stuff from Neon Genesis that was kind of like put into Shin Godzilla. And he uses some very similar camera angles and storytelling devices and like things like that I kind of, not that you're going to not enjoy Shin Godzilla, but I feel like it would just take your enjoyment of it to another level if you have some kind of a reference of the Neon Genesis style. Because all these Shin movies, Shin Kamen Rider, Shin Ultraman, and Shin Godzilla it's literally just like the dude was like, I'm going to take Neon Genesis and make these movies from that like formula. And it's really cool. And I enjoy Shin Godzilla a lot, but like, and I've shown it to people who have no idea about Neon Genesis, and they're like, yeah, it was really, really cool. But it was just like, you missed so many little things that he, it just kind of, yeah. That's
Yeah, well, maybe when we get Shin Godzilla on the docket, it might be a while from now, but maybe we just sort of like add to the homework for that episode.
yeah.
And a chosen format of Neon Genesis.
Cool.
Get that extra level of appreciation.
Sweet. Well, let's jump in, shall we?
Yeah.
So,
King of the Monsters.
King of the Monsters. This is part of the MonsterVerse timeline or era, made by the American movie company Legendary, very, very close in hand with Toho. This came out in 2019. To my recollection, it did really well in the theaters or the box office, whatever. I'll give you a quick little TLDR and who the main characters are, and then we'll take off with Brian's thoughts.
Okay. Totally.
So Godzilla King of the Monsters follows the heroic efforts of a cryptozoological agency known as Monarch, and its members faced off against a battery of god-sized monsters, including the mighty Godzilla, who collides with Mothra, Rodan, and his ultimate nemesis, the three-headed King Ghidorah. When these ancient superspecies, thought to be mere myths, rise again, they all vie for supremacy, leaving humanity's very existence hanging in the balance. That from the movie database.
The
main characters. Let's start with our kaiju. We've got Godzilla, King Ghidorah, Rodan, Mothra. Those are the main ones, and then there's a slew of other, like Toho, just the team from Toho. They throw some other monsters in there. Behemoth. There's a Muto. There's anyways.
Well, it's interesting because I knew exactly what you meant by Muto, but in the world of Monarch, they actually use Muto to refer to a variety of kaiju monsters.
Right. But
they seem to use it as more of a general term, but I know that you mean the one that's in Godzilla 2014,
yeah.
Right?
But there is no other. I don't think they've named those though. I think they're literally. I don't know. Anyways, so that's our kaiju. Humans. We've got Coach Eric Taylor from Friday Night Lights, aka Kyle Chandler. Vera Farmiga. We've got 11 from Stranger Things, Millie Bobby Brown. Dr. Serizawa is back with his friend Dr. Chen. And I don't know if you caught this, but Dr. Chen has a twin named Dr. Ling. She was the one that witnessed the rebirth of Mothra, or the birth of Mothra in the waterfall in this movie. They're two different people and they don't know each other exists.
Did not catch that.
Dr. Chen is the one that's always with Dr. Serizawa, and then she herself plays the second character, Dr. Ling, who is, wherever it was that like Mothra does the thing in the waterfall. We're going to jump, as long as we're here, this is a fun little bit of trivia. This is a callback, and they point it out in the movie, but the original, like when Mothra first appeared, she had two little tiny twin sister like guides. So they were little tiny people. And so that's just a fun little, I appreciate Legendary doing that.
I have a feeling that this movie is chock full of
many Easter eggs, dude. Yeah, so many Easter eggs.
That I probably just missed
musical motifs and like so many things. Really? Yeah. The Mothra theme song, they pop it in there a couple times and it just like, if you're not, anyways,
from the Mothra movie or something else?
No, Mothra's theme, from the Mothra movie, but like also like the Mothra theme is in any movie that she's ever been in. Her little...
Sorry, this is such a tangent. Do we consider the Mothra movie to be part of our canon, even though it's not a Godzilla movie?
Yes.
Like, will we watch that?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it might be a bonus episode, but it's not but there is a like Godzilla vs. Mothra movie.
Right.
But there is
so I feel like we should watch Mothra before we...
Yeah, but it is kind of like, there's Kong Skull Island and whatever, before they blend the story together. Same deal with Mothra. But yeah, we totally watch it. So yeah, she's Dr. Chen, Dr. Ling. Dr. Stanton is the silver hair guy with the glasses. What are you doing, dude? That guy, he's so funny. And then Thomas Middleditch for some reason, because yeah, the Verizon guy. They wanted the Verizon guy in this movie.
The Verizon guy is so disrespectful.
What's that movie?
Wow.
Or no, what's the TV show he's in? Like Robin Hood or no?
Isn't it? It's not the IT crowd.
It's not IT crowd. It's Switched. Ubiquity.
the Valley.
Hot Fast Startup. Silicon Valley. There it is. Some hot widget on widget action.
My God, dude,
that show is ridiculous.
I haven't watched it.
Wait,
is it any good?
It is actually really good. I watched the whole first season in like a week. And then the very last, we have the female military version of Nick Fury. Her name is Aisha Hines, Colonel Foster in the movie. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I mentioned King Kong earlier. Kyle Chandler plays one of the main characters in that movie. If you haven't seen it,
in the Peter Jackson one,
in the Peter Jackson's King Kong movie,
interesting.
Which is a if you haven't seen it, it's basically a faithful modern remake of the original 1933 movie.
Okay, I feel like I saw it when it came out, but
long
I don't.
And epic.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember it being long, but yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. Really love it. But yeah, he's in that. And so it was just funny to me because I had just watched Kong Skull Island, MonsterVerse Kong movie, and then watched this film, and then I was like, oh, wow, the guy from 2005 King Kong.
That's a whole Scarlet Witch thing all over again.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, so there's all that set up, and if you've made it this far, now we're going to get to the real meat of it.
Also, Ice Cube Jr. is in this movie.
What?
I'm just going to call him Ice Cube Jr.
Oh, yeah. Well, you didn't know? They're going to bring Godzilla back from the dead. That guy? The military guy? Yeah. Well, you didn't hear, Cruz? They're going to bring Godzilla back from the dead. Gosh.
Epic.
My favorite line from this whole movie is Dr. Stanton being, little Dr. Serizawa let him fight action, huh? I love it when he says that. That's my favorite part of, like, my favorite line of his in the whole movie. It's so great.
Which is funny because that concept is actually criticized in the Monarch show pretty heavily at some point. There's so many different perspectives from people within Monarch, which is cool.
Yeah, I love that they're like, it's
yeah.
It brings the, like, it, I don't know, it makes it feel more real, and I love that.
Realistic, yeah. I have a bunch of stuff for the trivia stuff at the end.
Awesome.
I just have to, I'm going to be pissed if I missed one of them. They're floating in my head. Like, I have the actual trivia list on IMDb open, but I also have, like, several things that I thought of that I wanted to talk about. Probably should have put them in my notes or something, but, that's what a smart person would do.
Hey.
Should we get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So I went right from Monarch into this, literally same day.
Okay.
So Monarch was very fresh in the mind. So here's some things I liked. Just even on screen, the concept of these Monarch outposts, sort of like a MonsterVerse lore thing they're doing for this organization Monarch, where there's sort of these base locations for the organization Monarch, where it's like where the local like group of team members of Monarch are there, and they're usually they're like monitoring something specific, regardless of there's all these like Monarch outposts around the world. Basically, it's like the local base for the Monarch organization, the people who work for Monarch. That's something that was like very prevalent in the Monarch show. It's something that's shown in this movie.
I think it's worth pointing out, and maybe I just missed you saying this, but that like these outposts are where there are kaiju.
In this movie, yes.
Yes.
That's not always the purpose. In the show where they explore it, I mean, some of it's just like release timeline of events,
True.
you know.
Yeah.
So they sort of established that there were these outposts in this movie, and then they later kind of went back in time with the show to sort of expand on that. And there's some other purposes and things for the outposts, but they end up being just kind of like basically base locations for the organization and the people who work for it. So, but it's cool to see sort of that continuity. They did a good job like bridging that. I like that. They also have the idea of like Godzilla. They sort of are figuring out that Godzilla can like travel through the earth to other points on the other side of the earth through like, it's kind of vague at this point, but underground tunnels. They sort of expand on how they think it works in the show, which is supposed to be before this movie happened. But basically, I don't know, it's a little teleporty, or maybe we're going to another realm and coming back to Earth. I don't know if they've like completely fleshed it out yet, but it's sort of their way of explaining how like Godzilla's in this one place, and then he just kind of shows up on the other side of the world really quickly, and he didn't like swim around the entire world, you know. He like kind of went through it, and that's pretty cool. Like that. I literally out loud as I'm watching this movie, I was like, "Bro, Godzilla is jacked, bro, freaking shredded." No, literally, like there's like several times in this movie where he's going from like forwards, like maybe like swimming layout, or maybe like he was like under the ground layout. I guess I'm thinking about the Monarch show at this point, but there's a moment where he like stands up, right? He's like going from sort of like face first to like he's now going to stand up to an upright position, and his dude like freaking his traps, dude.
Yeah.
He's like all traps.
It's huge.
Friggin' shredded. And I just thought it was funny because I literally said that out loud, and then I like put in my notes just how jacked Godzilla is. And then like at least twice in the movie, characters call it out. They literally like comment on it, and I was like, glad I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
They're like at least self-aware about it. So that's cool. I don't know anything about the other kaiju.
Okay.
That's something that's unique for me watching this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I like just from the names of the movies in the 70s that I've like run across, I'm like aware that these other like names exist. Don't really know what they are, what they look like really, unless it's like super obvious on like the movie poster or something. Like I don't really know what these things are. So I didn't know what King Ghidorah was or looked like. I guess I knew it was like a multi-headed thing, but I did not realize that there were wings involved, and that it was basically like a 3-headed dragon.
Yeah.
That's freaking sick.
Yeah.
Dude is massive.
Yeah.
Massive. I thought it was cool just with the 3 heads, like the Hydra thing. And then just like the wings came out, and I was like, oh shoot.
The split tail with the like
multiple
dagger
tails.
club things on the end, like
Yeah.
Yep.
Almost like I'm not gonna be able to think of it, but the dinosaur that like has like a club tail. It's a little like that.
Yeah.
The one that's super spiny.
Stegosaurus.
I'm Googling it. No, they have spikes.
Stegosaurus
has spikes.
Yeah, but I thought they had a spiked tail too.
I used to know my dinosaurs. Ankylosaurus. Is the one that's all kind of like bony.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Sort of like a beak-like mouth, and it has sort of like this long tail with like a stubby club-looking thing at the end.
Yeah.
That like, swinging around.
Yep.
I'm sure it's in one of those Jurassic Park movies, but it's like 40 of them now.
Yeah. Yeah. The reveal of Ghidorah is so cool.
I'm actually like having more positive thoughts about this movie as I'm talking about it than I did while watching it. I don't know what I mean by that.
You're just realizing like, you liked it more than
I'm like reading my notes. I was like, I should rewatch this. It was kind of cool, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I liked all that. They brought back, really in name only and very briefly, the oxygen destroyer concept.
Yeah.
From the 1954 film, which I think you mentioned a long time ago that was going to come back or be referenced again. I think they just kind of did it as like a quick Easter egg.
Yeah,
Didn't end up
we
really
need to
accomplishing
we need to have the
much. It
military do
wasn't like an end of
something
the movie
here.
move.
Yeah, exactly. It was just
Yeah, it
like
was just like a writing hack of like we need something to move the movie forward. So
yeah.
we need a way to get Godzilla down for the count, basically. And obviously, spoilers for this whole podcast, but I mean, essentially, like it takes down Godzilla, but it doesn't really touch Ghidorah. And I guess the way they explain that is saying that Ghidorah is from space and didn't originate as like an Earth-based kaiju.
Yep.
I don't know if that's like
That's canon.
lore consistent.
Yep.
Is that canon? Okay.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a surprise to you.
Yeah, Ghidorah has always been a space monster.
And that was why they were saying that the oxygen destroyer didn't affect it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how after that scene, because like they're fighting in the water, right? Godzilla and Ghidorah fighting. Godzilla rips one of the three heads off, right? And then they drop the oxygen destroyer. Ghidorah flies out of the water and goes and lands on top of that mountain in Brazil, and then grows the third head back. Yeah, that whole little sequence is so freaking cool. They'd never done that in a movie, and I don't think they could have in a good way. And I'm glad that it was never done until now. It was just so like
the effects was well done on that.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen any of the memes, but there are lots of memes about Ghidorah from this film that like the three heads had different personalities, and the one like that one that got ripped off the first time is the stupid one. Like he's the one that's like licking at something like a dead body or whatever, and the other one hits him with its own head. Like
I have seen the meme. I didn't know it was based on this movie.
Yeah, it's because it's from this movie. Yeah.
Okay. That's fun.
Yeah.
Haven't really talked with the people in the film yet, and that's because I have some criticisms about that. But some people making some questionable decisions and doing dumb things. There's a moment where I'm going to call her 11. I don't remember her character's name.
Maddie.
Where she calls her mom a monster because of the things she's doing. And I was like, oh man.
Double entendre.
Pairing that moment with another moment where they basically say that Godzilla is the king. Or they're talking about like there's a committee meeting where they're talking about like, oh, like you're proposing that instead of an enemy, like Godzilla will be like our pet, and then like kind of one of a Taudi. I can't say his last name. Serizawa. That's easier. He's just no, we're his pet.
We would be his.
The idea being like he's the king, and then like we're his pets.
Yeah.
So if you like pair that with that moment where what's her name like calls her mom a monster, like king of the monsters, that concept kind of takes on a very different meaning. I thought that was probably the most poetic thing related to the human characters in this movie.
Yeah.
There's not much to build on, I think, but that was cool.
You thought you brought up that Serizawa thing, and now I can think of is right after that when they get the call and they have to leave, and Thomas Middleditch is like, here's this video about kaiju reproduction, and hopefully the genitals are blurred out on this one, and if not, just call my secretary, and just like runs out the door.
That's verbatim what he says, yeah. Man.
I told you, I've seen these movies a lot.
Shoehorned into this thing. Yeah. This bullet point that I'm looking at right now is, quote, record everything, man. Everything. I don't know why that line got me. What's his name, man?
Dr. Stanton, dude. Yeah, I record everything,
Bradley
man.
Whitford's character.
Everything.
They're questioning whether they got like something on camera, and he's like, I record everything, man. Everything.
It is the sideways glance from Kyle Chandler. That's just like
it's a good moment.
So good. His character's so great. Yeah, I like the other moment where they're like, so they're in that underwater observatory and Godzilla's coming up to the intimidation display, and what's his face walks up to the window, and then Dr. Stan's like, what are you doing, dude? Like, and then,
what are you doing, dude?
Hey, do you think we could close the window now? He's just such a great addition to the film.
Yeah, some good comic relief in there.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked what I'm calling Godzilla Atlantis.
Yeah, the Lost Civilization kind of
That
deal.
was freaking sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were some moments prior to that where I was like, all right, let's get somewhere. Maybe I had some criticisms about the plot of the writing. We got to that part, and I was like, this is sick. This is cool.
Yeah.
So I guess there had always been sort of some vague references to like old human civilizations where like a kaiju was sort of like their god. And so they kind of like, I guess, took that concept from a lot of references in previous films and sort of like merged it all together into like, hey, maybe there's like this Atlantis sort of place where this ancient people like kind of had Godzilla as like their god creature thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so like got this submarine they're going through there. It's really cool.
Yeah. And it's not something that they've ever like directly mentioned in a film in terms of Godzilla, but like it has always, like you said, it's been alluded to in other films. It's been alluded to with other kaiju characters like Mothra. In older films, Mothra's egg is always kind of like in some temple surrounded by people that are singing and dancing and like, you know, believe that this egg is going to, you know, they know who Mothra is. And like King Kong's the same way. There's the people, what is it, the Iwi?
That's true.
Iwi, whatever on Skull Island. That kind of, that ancient civilization thing. So, yeah. But
Have you seen 2005's King Kong?
I don't know.
Bro, you got to rewatch that.
I got to.
It's so good.
Yeah, okay.
It's excellent.
Okay.
Andy Serkis, dude.
It's on the list.
It's on the list. Maybe just like don't rewatch King of the Monsters 2 more times and you'll have enough runtime to watch King Kong once.
There you
go. Yeah, so that the Atlantis was cool. I think part of it also is like anytime I ever see like a human city that's been like, completely submerged and is now like underwater and taken over by, you know, the sea world of life. I always think that's cool to see like human civilization now covered in like algae and coral. I always think that's cool. That was a cool vibe. Serizawa had a more involved and meaningful and purposeful role in this film than he did in the first Legendary Godzilla film. So, you know, kind of redeemed that for him.
That was the comment that you made about that last film too, is that you wished him and Chen kind of had like a better or more role or something. Like it just seemed like they were kind of there to be I think you said just kind of like the stereotypical like, here's the Japanese doctor kind of like whatever.
In this film,
yeah,
there was a lot of moments where like it was really like Kyle Chandler's role, where he was like kind of like sort of the contrarian character, where he's like, no, like we need to do this. Like, come on, we need to do this, and like everyone would kind of look to Serizawa for approval, and then he would just sort of like echo it.
Yeah.
So even like still in some of those moments, it's like, all right. Does he really serve any purpose here, or is he just kind of in charge? And he's like the character who agrees with like the rogue person who's been brought in and like, you know, allows them to do the contrarian thing.
Yeah, the one that like maybe that used to have a pass, you know, has a pass, but is by the rules now. But like, yeah, that kind of deal. Yeah,
right. But yeah, he was on screen a lot more of this film, and then like ultimately like had a significant role at a point in the film.
That whole scene is so cool. And the idea of like, let's just like you take him out there. Like we found out there's this air pocket, and I just thought it was a really cool scene. Like,
yeah, it was pretty cool.
I appreciated in that it was kind of so like in 1954, Serizawa hates Godzilla, like just like wants to destroy him, and that's the point of the oxygen destroyer, and like gives himself up to rid the world of this thing that he feels he's partially responsible for because he was part of the nuclear testing, whatever, right? Like he feels like he was partially responsible for creating Godzilla and feels like he needs to destroy him. I like what they did with Serizawa in this film, that he like it was a he felt like he was helping a friend almost or something at the end, was giving his life for a friend that he knew he was giving for this, like, the greater good, but not to destroy Godzilla, but to, like, help him then save everybody else. I like that kind of, they just made that the opposite this time.
And was it the same name, Serizawa, in the 1954?
Yes. Their first names are different.
It's just supposed to be like a descendant, or maybe just like sort of an homage kind of a thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's which one it is, but they share the same last name, which is kind of another, like, the Oxygen Destroyer Easter egg is another cool little, like, put those together, because it was Serizawa that made the Oxygen Destroyer in the first movie in 54. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought, like, that scene looked so cool too. It was like all the red and the fire, and like I like the scene of him, like, trudging up the stairs carrying the nuclear warhead, and, like, yeah, I don't know. It was really, really cool. Really epic.
Chewing break. I made a mistake.
Brian thought I was going to be talking a lot longer than I did. And
I really committed to that part.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Not sponsored. This is next to me right now, and I can smell it. Like, I can smell it's calling to me. I should put it away.
This is what's next to me right now, and it's also calling to me. I made Chick-fil-A salad at home. Basically.
Solid.
Yeah.
So I also have, I guess this is a little further in the film, but this is, I guess, the girl Madison. She's, like, going to was it Fenway Park?
Fenway.
The baseball stadium?
Fenway Park.
Fenway.
In Boston. Yep.
Fenway. Yeah, and there's, it's just so funny. Like, she's, like, we know that the base that they're in is outside of Boston because they mentioned it earlier in the film, but she's, like, kind of heading into the city to find this bar. And there's, like, this establishing drone shot of a Dunkin' sign. And I'm like,
how much?
You needed to be confirming that we are in Boston. Just like the obvious
America runs on Dunkin'
sign. Yeah, but it's also, like, such a Boston thing. I just thought that was funny. Like a little Boston moment for the Boston people.
Yeah. Little Boston moment for the Boston people, for all the departed.
Nice impression. With
my khakis and my khakis.
You like that map?
Please keep talking. Save us from this.
I was trying to think of another quote. Damn it. Anyways, dude, one of the cool shots in the film, when Godzilla is just, like, furrowed brows marching into fight with the, like, full weight of the military, like, alongside him. Freaking epic, dude.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Yeah, that was awesome.
That's after they bring him back, right? That's after the, like, Serizawa. Yeah. Because they're all heading it. Yeah. Dude, the submarine comes shooting out of the water, lands. They get up out of the submarine, and they're all, like, waiting for Godzilla to come back or whatever. And you see the blue glow, and then so that song right there, that's Godzilla's battle theme. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Like, that's where this is go time. And that they added in this, like, chanting, very, like, tribal islander, ha ha ba 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 ha. And I, like, every time I watch it, I stand up out of my seat and just have to, it's so cool. Just like, he's back, and he comes up out of the water, and, like, there's all the electricity sounds of his, like, back charging up, and he comes out and just, like, blew fire into the air, and then, like,
And he's like supercharged with radioactivity
Yeah.
too, which they kind of established in the film. Like
Juiced.
we might have given them too much juice. I think that's when they talk about.
Dr. Stan says it. He's like Serizawa's idea worked a little too good. Godzilla's juiced or something like that.
Yeah, they make a comment about he's jacked too. It's really funny. And he's like kind of glowing a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, the way his eyes glow blue every time he does the radiation
when he's
burst.
first walking in, like his eyes are blue and then they kind of like fade to regular.
Yeah.
But like through like the smoke, you can like see the blue eyes and like the spine glowing a little bit.
Yeah, that's
cool.
It's in the trailer for the new movie, but they do that. But he's pink in the new movie, and there's a really good explanation for it. But like, they just like they grow on that. He's just even more jacked, like even more crazy Godzilla. It's amazing. Anyways,
where are we gonna go to next?
Oh, dude, I can't wait to talk about that movie with you. Anyways.
Also cool. Is it after the credits? During the credits?
Yeah,
some of these movies have after credit scenes.
Some of them, but not all of them. Yeah.
Apparently, anytime you like start a cinematic universe, you have to have after the credit scenes. It's like required now. So,
thanks, Tony Stark.
Yeah, well, it was cool. Yeah, they confirm that they're exploring the Hollow Earth Titan theory. I don't remember how they did it. I just wrote that down as a note. It was during or after the credits.
Yeah, I've actually been skipping those completely. I don't even remember it. So I know it's there, but I haven't been watching it.
Something you'll want to look up. And then they also... Oh, I know what I'm thinking of, I think. I want to say it was like... So they have like sort of news clips as like that credit style. And there's like a lot of little notes or Easter egg things in the end credits. One of them is confirming, hey, we think we found another Mothra egg.
Oh, yeah.
The little Easter egg, sort of like we're going to leave room for bringing back Mothra in the future kind of a thing.
Yeah.
That may have been the Hollow Earth. It might have been like a headline thing that was in the credits that I wrote that down from. So,
which to point out, Mothra coming back, like Mothra being reborn is nothing new to to Godzilla at all. It kind of is almost like expected a little bit. Like, yeah, there'll just be another Mothra egg will just show up. Like, it just kind of works like that for some reason. So, yeah.
All right, let's talk about things I didn't like. I just added one to the list. We didn't see a lot of like human-centric camera angles of monsters from below in this film. I think it causes us to lose some sense of scale. Like, okay, sure, we can see from a distance that there's a giant CG city with CG monsters fighting each other. I think it sells it a little better when you have, like, I mean, the 2014 movie did a great job of having, like, these crazy camera angles through, like, rainy glass, like, halfway up a high-rise or, like, from the ground.
Some of them even felt like they were being, like handheld footage, like, yeah.
Exactly. Like, mixing that stuff in feels so organic.
Yeah.
And that is probably just, like, something to do with, like, that director and the way he chose to go about it in 2014. So this director didn't really do that. We see a lot of those, like, really wide angles where we kind of, it doesn't, like, sell the scale super well. Like, we understand that it's a giant monster. We can see, like, if you know the city they're in really well and you kind of know how big it is, like, you can sort of imagine how big it is, but it's hard to imagine without, like, having a human perspective, you know, like a helicopter's perspective or a mountain overlooking the city's perspective isn't like a typical human perspective. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I would have loved to see some more grounded angles.
Yeah, especially like because like they tried to,
especially of these kaiju themselves.
Yeah,
you see a lot of
exactly.
Yeah, in this film,
right.
Like,
because of like how big
Ghidorah
actually is, how big Rodan actually is. Like,
which like they're in theory they're massive, but like, how can you even imagine what that would look like if you were standing below it or looking up at it from the ground?
Yeah,
we never got to see that in this film.
Yeah,
I think that's a miss.
Yeah, there were like I feel like the one what kind of got close was at Fenway Park when 11 has the what do they call that machine?
The like the bio some
Yeah, the
bio
bioacoustic simulation.
audio
Yeah,
bioacoustics.
Orca,
Yeah.
Orca, the Orca.
Oh, right. They did have a name for it.
Um,
I forgot that they called it Orca.
she's broadcasting the Orca, and Ghidorah lands in Fenway Park, and is just like, and like the amount, like for how much, I don't know. I feel like that's one of maybe two shots that does that in this film. But yeah, it was
Yeah, that helps.
definitely few and far between, and not as, yeah. I agree. I liked that about 2014, that there was that sense of scale and sense of like, I am watching this from a very small person's perspective, kind of thing. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So, my biggest criticism of this film, I mean, I don't know if you would say that like the human storylines were particularly amazing in the 2014 film. I thought they were decent. It's definitely the weakest point of this movie.
Yeah.
It's to me painfully obvious that there was a board meeting where they're like, all right, we got the rights to use Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan. That was a 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or was there a 4th? I mean, there's other kaiju they pull in, but
Yeah.
those are the main ones, right? And so they're like, all right, we need a movie where Godzilla and these kaiju are in the same movie. We want to see them fight each other. Let's try and come up with a plot around that. Like, that's clearly like where this came from. So, it's very, very, very obvious to me. They're like, all right, we need them to come from somewhere. Well, let's say that there's Monarch outposts and they're like monitoring these dormant. They're just kind of like there in ice, and then the Monarch is just kind of watching them, and that's like we're going to come up with some reason for them to be woken up. Maybe not even a good reason, but they're going to get woken up, and then everyone's expectations are going to be met. They weren't very inventive with where these creatures came from or how they were introduced. They just kind of like put them at these locations where scientists watching them, and then big surprise, they're the Chekhov's kaiju, if you will, of, wow, there's a giant monster frozen in ice.
Title.
Wow, it'd be a shame if someone would wake that up. I'm not a great writer, so like I couldn't tell you what to do instead, but I feel like you could have been a little more interesting with it, or something that was unexpected, maybe.
What's really interesting to me is knowing the history of these films is that it has always been a thing.
Yeah,
they've literally they've never tried to, like, other than Godzilla having the origin of like, nuclear testing, literally none of the other kaiju have any real origin story, and it's slightly maddening. Yeah. And you're right, the human element in this story was like, just, it is for sure
even
the weakest.
Like the Orca thing, like that was an original, interesting, grounded concept that they brought into this film. Like, there's things like that they could have done to explain, the emergence of some other creature.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it was after this film, but in the show Monarch, they were sort of like playing with like this gamma radiation simulator device. And it was like basically attracting a kaiju, or a muto, I guess might be a better explanation, to the device. So they were like playing around with like scientific ways of like explaining why this creature was awoken, or where it come from, or that maybe that's something that's simulating a mating call, and like that is like, oh, we didn't realize we were doing a mating call. That's where this creature, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, you could do something like that. But anyways, it just it was obvious that they built this movie around the monsters, and then just kind of like, that meme of like the horse that's like colored in, and it's like the first third and the second third are like very detailed and colored, and the last one is like a 3-year-old scribble. That last third for me was like, oh yeah, and there's some humans in this.
Yeah. Oh,
we
wait.
need them to kind of do some things and have some mild objections, and then let the monsters fight each other. So, Emma, who's Madison's mom, she had no purpose in this film. Like, they literally just sort of invented her to have some vague reasons for why she should join a bad guy and release the monsters that we want to fight Godzilla. Like, they really did not put much effort into explaining. She was just kind of there to make dumb decisions, and that was her role. To do stupid things. And like, even her like reasoning for it was like, she just had a stroke. Nothing she said made sense.
Yeah, it was
like her vague reasoning for why she released, like, there wasn't even like a compelling reason. She just kind of like
we're just we the planet,
monsters.
we the planet, and we need to,
my son died,
the natural
I guess.
order. Yeah,
reasons, I guess.
Yeah, and this guy's an eco-terrorist, and so he understands. And
you ever watch those pitch meeting videos?
No.
With Ryan George?
No.
Oh my God, dude. I need to get you into this. I hope there's one for this movie. I'm very curious to see what he'd do. Anyways, Emma was a weak character. She was literally a plot device to justify finding a way to bring the monsters into the alive and stuff. So, not very inventive.
I mean, but to contrast that, or like, let's just ask the question, is that's better, in my opinion, that's a better story device than just like, oh, these things are all just waking up and we have no idea why, and like we didn't even know they were there, and they just, because that has been a story device before too, just like, look, the mountains just exploded and now there's 6 new kaiju here and we didn't even know, and they all happen to be right here in Japan. Like, it's not a great storytelling device, but I don't know, I kind of feel like it's better than that.
Yeah, but I mean, like, she started from like, she was sort of introduced as like a scientist who was like really interested in testing this orca device on the Mothra pupae, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And it seemed like there was like a lot of wonder and awe of like, oh, I've like figured out this alpha frequency thing. And then she's just like, now I'm just going to be a crazy woman doing stupid stuff for no reason.
Yeah.
And I'm no longer an interesting scientist interested in my work. I'm just going to do stupid stuff in the line with these like terrorist dudes.
And it's almost like there was supposed to be way more understood of her feelings and like all of that stuff. Like, you should have just kind of picked up on that way easier than they laid it out. That it should have been, she lost her son and you know, the planet and all this. Yeah, they just didn't do a good job of giving you that information before they made her the bad guy, I think. Like, yeah,
unless I like, you know, spent a bunch of time hating on her. Like, I think that was just like a theme in this movie for me of just lack of human character depth or story.
Yeah, and that was, I remember, like, that
humans are just kind of there to move the plot along or find ways to justify Godzilla going from alive to dormant to alive again and juiced, and just like, this movie has to have 3 acts, so let's find something to switch from one act to the next. Yeah. It wasn't like very interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and just like a lack of a relational through line parallel to the monster story, where we see like a progression of like a character over the course of the film, or someone grows, or someone learns something, or there's a redemption of some kind. Like, even in like the 2014 film, like, we saw some of those moments where there were like parallel human like character stories being told alongside the monster thing. Like I thought it was more interesting to like see sort of like a character we know some things about who's going through some stuff or whatever, and that they've been taken to the city, and just like they're now experiencing this disaster that's happening, and you're seeing the monsters through that character's eyes instead of just like through a vague camera that's floating above a mountain over a city.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not grounded, you know?
Yep.
I think it's just more meaningful or more relatable, I guess you could say, to tell it through a character's perspective, where you can kind of see how they're viewing the events that are unfolding. I think that's more relatable, but
yeah, this movie feels like they looked around at what was going on at the time in action movies and decided to try to take Godzilla and make it just an action movie without as much of a human story, which can sometimes work in, like, I don't know, like, I feel like, I don't know, it can work if it's like when there aren't monsters involved, if it's all just people and you're more worried about car chases or something. But then, it's tricky for sure. And they missed it on this one. I agree.
Yeah. Those are the end of my disagreements, really.
Yeah.
There were enough cool moments to make up for that, but overall, I don't know. Maybe there's a transition to that segment of, I gave it 7 out of 10 stars.
Yeah, so 3.5 out of 5. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, which is 8 out of 10. I'm still really bad at math. Almost didn't make it out of high school again. I don't know. I guess I can.
You probably got a lot more of the Easter eggs. Maybe you could point out some of those. That could be cool.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many Easter eggs that I'm even having. As I tried to like think of them, they're all just like racing by way too quick. But I just like this movie because, despite like so I agree with everything you said, that it's just kind of like the human story is very just kind of like shoehorned in there a little bit, or we've got to find a way to make this. But the flip side of that statement is that there is so much monster action in this movie to a scale that like really hasn't been, like, certainly was not in 2014. There was not that much screen time for Godzilla. And really, even in other film, like later Toho stuff that we'll get into, they did a better job of it. But I just thought that, like, there's so much monster time in this movie. It's really, really cool. I think the scene where they are attempting to stop the release of Rodan in Mexico or wherever that is, and, it blows the top off the volcano, Rodan escapes, and so then they're trying to draw Rodan out of land and into the ocean where Ghidorah is, and Ghidorah is like tropical storm that it's creating. And that whole chase scene of like Rodan just like picking all those airplanes out of the sky and the like barrel rolls, and then he like here's a little bit of trivia for you.
That was cool.
The plane that like Rodan is like right behind, and the dude like pulls his like emergency thing and gets out, and like Rodan snacks him out of the sky and eats him. That's the director. The dude that was flying the plane gets eaten as the director. But that's kind of fun.
I might have seen that in the trivia. That's cool.
I just thought that was, and like the whole, and then all of a sudden it's Rodan and Ghidorah, and those scenes are really cool. When Ghidorah does the one head notices the like live electricity at the power plant and bites it and like supercharges itself, and then it does the giant super lightning thing out of all of its wingtips and everything. That's such a cool moment.
I don't remember when that was.
It is just before Mothra appears, like comes out of the clouds to help Godzilla. It's what knocks Godzilla down to then, Mothra needing to show up, but it's
towards the end.
Yeah, it's basically that like Ghidorah has Godzilla like wrapped up, they're fighting, and one of the heads notices that there's like live power down below, and so it grabs onto it and it like supercharges their body, and they like throw Godzilla, and then just like lightning out of their mouths, out of like all the spike tips on their wings, out of its tail, like all the just like big explosion.
Well, I have another criticism. Madison the girl takes Orca to Fenway.
Yes,
I said it right. I don't know what I said last time. It was some other thing that I made up. The concept of her playing that through a PA and Kaiju hearing that all the way around the world. Like, come on, you could have come up with something better.
You don't think that would work?
Like, that's lazy writing. Come on, that's so lazy. Anyways,
it is
just kind of face palmed a little bit. All right. It is a monster movie. It doesn't mean you have to phone it in. Come on.
You think that's phoning it in, huh? Wow.
Yeah.
Harsh words.
Think of something better.
Yeah, I think all of the monster moments are really, really cool. And I guess for a movie called King of the Monsters, that's what I would have wanted. I think I would take this over a little bit of a better human story and less monster time, because this movie is meant to be like Godzilla doing some damage. And
Certainly
it being
does.
one of his like toughest foes, or what, I can't think of words right now. We need to. I want to go to bed. Trivia. You want to do some trivia?
Yeah. I have two things in my head that I have managed to not forget,
All right.
which is a record. One is, it's not like, these are just two things I noticed. Three things? Two things. If you go to IMDb and you look up this movie, or maybe any MonsterVerse movie, but for sure this movie, I noticed, if you look on the cast, the kaiju in this movie have credited listings as if they are like real entities.
Yeah.
Godzilla playing Godzilla and King Ghidorah. And if you click on the credit, it shows like their appearance in other MonsterVerse films as if they were like cast in the movie or something.
I love that.
I just thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Like to the effect of like even like some of the images are credited as photos of them, so that if you like go to their like actor page or whatever on IMDb, you can like see these images from the movies they're in.
I love that somebody's taking the time to do that, or that somebody made their intern do that.
It's like that's another level of like acknowledging this is like a real thing or something. I also wanted to point out, so you mentioned at the beginning like the budget or like how well it did in the theater or something.
Yeah.
When you said that, I thought to myself, I kept it to myself. I thought to myself, I remember a lot of discussion and a lot of people that I knew going to see the 2014 film. I don't remember hearing jack about the 2019 film. Like, I don't even remember being aware that it was in the theater or that people I know were going to see it. So I looked at the budget and the gross. Godzilla 2014, the budget was $160 million. It made $200 million gross U.S. and Canada, and then like $500 worldwide. So pretty successful. But it easily made its money back in the U.S. run, and then also made a lot worldwide. This movie, the budget was $170. It's kind of the same, honestly. $10 million more, but $10 million is not nothing. But $170 million budget, only made $110 in the U.S. So I feel like maybe something failed in the marketing, or people just didn't care, or didn't maybe know who the other monsters were. But it did make almost $400 worldwide. So the international market really picked that up, and it still like turned a profit. But I just thought it was super interesting that it just did not make much in the U.S. I'm not sure how they marketed it, but.
And I wonder if it's like, I wonder if some of it has to do with a little bit of like Marvel fatigue at the time, and a little bit of like, because that's 2019. We just before the pandemic, or no, this might have come out.
Came out. Hold on.
This may have come out after. Didn't this come out during the pandemic?
No, it was May 2019. So it's like a year before.
Oh, you're right.
But Endgame may have come out in May 2019. Could be that. April 2019. It came out a month after Endgame.
Okay.
Which, for reference, Endgame was budget of $356 million, paid $850 US, and $2.7 billion worldwide. So a lot of people saw that movie, and then a month later, maybe people were still seeing Endgame and not caring about this franchise.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, especially if it didn't
Good bet.
get a whole bunch of good reviews right off the bat. Like, it just didn't help. I'm glad that they've kept going and
yeah, I agree.
Didn't stop. What is this? 2019 monster movies, not Zilla. Zilla Foot. What?
What are you reading right now?
I Googled 2019 movies and I'm just kind of scrolling through and it's disaster movies, romantic movies, comedies, horrors, action, monster movies. And the first one from 2019 is called Not Zilla. Japanese scientists act on a giant monster in the U.S. must save it in Cincinnati. Comedy film, monster comedy film, parody of kaiju films. Huh. I don't know. Anyways, we're off track.
Anyways,
trivia.
Sure. I'm just kind of reading it, and some things are interesting. Trivia. There's a skeleton in I'm going to call it Godzilla Atlantis, with a body shape resembling Anguirus.
Anguirus, yeah.
A dinosaur.
Yeah.
Who I guess was probably in some previous films that you're aware of.
Mm-hmm.
The filmmakers confirmed it. That's cool. I don't know anything about that, but there's eye spots on Mothra's wings that were made to sort of mimic Godzilla's eyes.
Wait, so the dinosaur and Mothra got a thing going on? That's kind of weird. Another Ice Cube Jr. moment.
It's kind of weird, man. What are you doing, man?
What are you doing?
So
dude?
there's a bunch of rando Titans kaiju in this movie. They kind of show up at random moments just to show that there's other ones around and to sort of emphasize the alpha thing. One of them, called Leviathan, is in Loch Ness. Apparently, Toho almost made a kaiju movie in '78, but in co-production with Hammer Horror. Would have been a Toho horror movie about Loch Ness. That would have been sick.
Ooh.
Yeah, never happened apparently, but that would be cool.
Yeah.
They secured the rights to Mothra, Rodan, and Ghidorah very shortly after 2014, so I'm sure they were working on this for a long time. Which you can't tell from the writing. I'm just kidding.
Well, what's crazy is the two dudes that wrote this, two of the three people that wrote this. Did we talk about this offline? Did I send you any of this at all?
I don't think
so. So do you know who the one of the story writers is? This dude wrote Shrek. He wrote all 5 of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and he wrote Aladdin. What happened?
A writer?
No, he was the writer.
Oh.
Well, a writer, but one of the lead writers for Aladdin, Shrek, and all 5 of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the previous team. Do you know what previous means? Previous means? Why are words hard?
What?
Do you know what previs means when I say previs? This isn't a trivia item.
No.
Previs is a pre-production step in a lot of modern filmmaking where they're basically doing some rough 3D movements stuff to kind of basically plan out how they want the motion of the cameras to be for scenes. So they'll throw real chunky, janky 3D models and stuff, and sort of boilerplate some camera moves. Kind of basically figure out how they want to shoot a particular scene.
Okay.
And they typically do that kind of with some general 3D stuff. In the old days, a lot of it was they were literally sketches.
Sure.
They just had a storyboard of sketches on the wall. These days, it's very common, especially for action sequences, to basically previs how you want. Because, I mean, literally on the script, it might just say, Godzilla fights King Ghidorah. And you're like, what does that mean? So the previs would be like, literally like planning out what all the moves are going to be and where the camera's going to be, seeing that and kind of plan it all out. And then, if the whole scene is CG, then whatever. It's like just a glorified, it's similar thing. But anyways, I guess the previs team, they were sort of filling in, maybe this was sketches, Madison, the girl's face with Millie Bobby Brown's face. And at some point they were like, we're really used to seeing her face on this previs. Maybe we should just give her an offer and see if she wants to be in this movie.
Oh, that's
kind of funny. That is really funny. Apparently they did some playing around to try and make Godzilla's roar even closer to the 1954 roar.
Yeah, I guess I could hear that.
I do remember the tail end of the roar tends to always sound like it.
Mm-hmm. Did you notice, here's another little like Easter egg or whatever. So Mothra, is like, there's that scene where Mothra flies at Ghidorah and then Ghidorah just like blasts her with lightning and blasts her back over, and she explodes over Godzilla and the dust comes down, whatever. And then he goes thermonuclear, right? And he just starts, those big red like explosions happen off of him. There's like Mothra's cry is in there too in each of those explosions. I don't know if you noticed that or not. So it's like,
okay,
like part of her, it's like her sound is part of that explosion, which I think is kind of cool. Like, hey, I
don't know if I remembered like Mothra's cry or what that sound is.
It's just very high pitched, like shriek kind of.
Cree!
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah,
exactly like that.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, someone was tweeting at the director asking how did Ghidorah get trapped in the ice in Antarctica, and he said, Ghidorah and Godzilla fought, and Godzilla won. Further emphasizing my theory that these monarch bases were just plot devices to find a way to introduce these characters into the movie.
Hey, gotta have something.
You can't write
I'll still take
post-release tweets.
Yeah,
That's not writing.
I'll still take it over them just being in a mountain and nobody had any idea, and now they're just waking up.
Yeah. Man, there was something. I want to say there was something further down this trivia list that I saw, and I've since lost. Yeah, there's a lot more stuff here, but here's one on the height. So Ghidorah in this film is 521 feet tall, so 128 feet taller than Godzilla, who's at 393. I would imagine that's similar Godzilla height to the previous film, but Ghidorah's taller, higher with the heads. Largest American incarnation of the monster in history. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, there's so much trivia. This is just like a general comment, but like when you're scrolling through trivia on IMDb for a lot of the movies we've watched so far, it hasn't been that long of a list. This one, you just like keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. There's just all kinds of trivia items people have in here. So
yeah,
not all of them are interesting. Some of them are interesting. So interested to see some of these characters in Jay-Z 70s films.
I'm reading some some factual errors from the movie.
Oh yeah.
Submarines cannot use GPS for deep water navigation. It was stated that Washington.
They weren't using sonar. I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I don't even know. stated that Washington, D.C. was being hit by a Category 6 hurricane. The Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale only goes to Category 5, no matter how strong a hurricane couldn't be Category 6. When the submarine is diving and hit by the impact, one of the orders shouted by the captain was emergency blow. This is an order to use all relevant systems to immediately send the boat back to the surface, breaching at a severe angle like a whale. This order is apparently ignored, and an emergency blow does not take place until later after the warhead goes off. There are numerous instances where you see lava flowing underwater on the seabed floor, yet the water is unaffected and does not boil off into steam. While at the site in Antarctica, Dr. Russell was knocked backward from a close proximity explosion. The shockwave from this blast would have seriously injured him internally if it didn't kill him outright. As for him being knocked back, resulting in a collision with a large stationary object, the speed at which he was traveling and then stopped by the object would have also seriously injured or killed him.
Couple here. Original cut of this movie was 3 hours long. So I wonder if there was a little more human stuff that maybe it didn't make the cut.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're like, well, we need all of the monster fighting we can get. So some of the other stuff will have to go. It's also Millie Bobby Brown's first movie.
Sure was. Yeah.
Which, it was funny, I was like watching this and I was like, oh wow, she looks so young. I literally looked up which Stranger Things season did this movie get filmed between. I think it was like after season 3 that she did this movie. So
wow.
So it was like probably a few years later that Stranger Things season 4 came out.
Yeah.
So they all really all aged up going into season 4.
Yeah, it's got to be so hard to shoot a show like that or something where you're maybe not trying to have that much time pass in between seasons or something, but you can't do anything about how fast kids grow. Like, I
heard they're doing a pretty big time jump for season 5.
Yeah,
so
well, it's also been like 5 years.
Really
so
be old.
Freaking better. Hey man, I mean,
we kind of covered it.
Yeah, I think we covered it. I would just yeah, I don't know. It's not the like standout Godzilla movie of the century or anything, but it is, I don't know, I just think it's really fun. And I think I texted you that after I watched it the first time a couple weeks ago, or recently a couple weeks ago. It just is like, it's a ride, and if you want to let it take you on that ride, it'll take you, and it's it's pretty fun. It's there's funny moments, there's some very serious moments, there's so much action. I don't know, yeah, just I think it's a really it's a solid kaiju movie, if nothing else.
Yeah, good stuff.
And it set up the Hollow Earth thing that they needed so desperately, and I think is a really cool idea.
Yeah, and really explored further in Monarch.
Yeah, and then even more in the Kong movies too. So,
if you listen to this podcast and you're looking to get into the MonsterVerse, and maybe only the MonsterVerse, that's fine. You should consider watching Monarch. It's a really great show.
Yeah.
Also,
I mean,
another
Sam, my wife,
thumbs up for Apple TV original series.
Seriously,
the Apple TV original movies haven't been the best.
No, but the TV series,
a lot of them have been great,
knocking it out of the park. Sam doesn't care about Godzilla at all, and she was like riveted by Monarch. Like, absolutely,
yeah, it's a human story.
Yeah, it's a human story. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Nice. Well, what's our next movie? It is Godzilla vs. Kong.
Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yep.
Yeah, sure, the next MonsterVerse movie.
Next legendary movie.
So stay tuned.
Great.
Or maybe you're listening to this and the next episode's already available, so you can just binge,
From our vantage point in the distant past, you could be some kind of sentient gel that is just listening to this and has kind of figured out some way to decode this ancient audio format, and for that I thank you, and I apologize for anything that we may have said that upset your race. We hope for peace among worlds. If you would like to see the full version of this episode, you can go to patreon.com/the one about Godzilla movies. It's $5 a month, and
what have you been saying, dude?
And you will get to see why Brian is so confused right now. I don't know. I just, hey, what's in the show is in the show, man. That's what I'm saying right now. Peace
This would
among
be a
worlds.
great reel to promote this show.
If you do like this show, or if you don't, leave us a review. Reviews help us get seen by more people. I don't know. Nobody writes reviews, but if you are somebody who writes, what am I saying? This is a review podcast. Please review our podcast that is about reviewing.
Please review
movies.
our podcast where we review and talk about Godzilla.
Review
movies.
our reviews, if you would.
And please tell us the things you liked and the things that you didn't like, and also some trivia about it.
Giving this week's challenge. The challenge is
we're breaking down fast.
You need to do homework to listen to this show. If you wanted to be on this week's episode, you had to be listening last week. And with that, I will bid you adieu.
I hope you say that every podcast episode. Never gets old.
I've definitely said it a few times now.
At least 3, yeah.
At least 3. Brian, is there anything else I can do for you before we get out of here?
I could use a hug, but
we haven't figured that out yet. I don't have the technology. I would, but I can't, so I won't.
Honestly, a time machine would cover it.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about time travel. We can't talk about time travel. That's not. I said I wasn't going to do it.
Anyways.
I said I wasn't going to do it, and now you're trying to make me do it. I don't want to talk about time travel. I can't.
You just need a TARDIS,
Anyways, this is the one about Godzilla movies. I'm sorry that you sat through this, and we'll see you on the next one. I love you. Bye.